Recording button.
Hi, my name's May. I love yarn, I love knitting and crochet. Those are my hobbies, and I also happen to be visually impaired. Now, tonight's topic's going to be buttons and how we manage those when we're visually impaired. And of course, sighted people can follow along. Some of this might be useful for them as well. Now, I'm a knitter, and this is a baby sweater. I'll zoom it out, I guess, for a minute so you can see it better.
Zoom one. Zoom one button.
So
Zoom
this
one.
is a baby
Selected.
sweater that I just finished knitting with the Premier acrylic yarn Dottie. I really like it. It's in the color Creekside. It's got a white background. We got some little dots, I guess, in the browns and tans and blues and greens. Honestly, as somebody who's colorblind, this was probably one of the easiest ones for me to figure out. Creek, right, makes me think like some blues for water, some green for some foliage, some tans and browns for earth. So that really made sense. I really wasn't comfortable buying some of the other colors in this particular yarn because I couldn't tell what they were from the color description. So I have knit up this pattern. It's a little baby cardi. This is a free pattern off of the Premier Yarn website. All you have to do is look under the Dottie yarn and there's free patterns available, and there's a baby cardi, and this is it. Now I do think I made some mistakes on the v-neck and a few other places. Did a few modifications, but overall this is similar to what you'd get. I don't usually follow patterns real well, but this is close to what we'd get. Now I did put 4 buttonholes on my button band. Okay, so that means now that I need to sew on 4 buttons. Well, as somebody who's totally colorblind, matching buttons to this might be really tricky for me because there's so much other color going on. Plus, it's such a busy yarn with all the dots and the speckled with the pattern. I was thinking plain white would probably be the best, right? Or some other type of neutral. Now, if I had like a brown button, like a little brown wooden button, that would probably also be very appropriate as well. That would probably look really cute. I do have some brown buttons, but the brown buttons that I have, in my opinion, are really too big for this sweater. So, sometimes you have to go with what you have in your house, in your stash, all that. So I do have some white buttons. Now, as somebody who's colorblind and visually impaired, I went ahead and selected out these white buttons, laid them out on the sweater, and then texted a picture to my mom and my sister. Those 2 people are my seeing eye humans, and for projects like this I often text them pictures just as a sort of a consultation. So that's what I did. I laid these 4 buttons out on the button band of my sweater, texted a picture to my mom and sister who are sighted, who do see in color, and they said, yeah, that's a good choice. So that is one thing. If you're visually impaired, if you can't see, if you're colorblind, that's something I recommend that you do. Is if you have somebody who lives with you who can help you, that's great. But if not, maybe there's somebody who who you can text a picture to. So the next thing we have to figure out once we've selected our buttons is we need to be able to sew them on. So we need to choose a needle that's going to fit through the buttonhole. This is my little needle thing here. I don't particularly like plastic needles. I think they're flimsy. I think they break. You can see I'm bending them. They break easily. So I'm gonna not use my plastic needles. So I've got 2 other needles here. I love this larger needle. This is my favorite needle. I can thread this needle independently without using any other tools. It's got a huge eye to it. But that also means it's a pretty big needle, right? So when I go to stick it through my hole on my buttons, it does not fit at all. So that means that's not an option. So I've got one other little metal needle in my little tube here. We're going to try it out. it does fit through the holes in the button. You want to push it all the way through, making sure it's going to be a tight fit. The eye at the top is going to be a tight fit through there, especially once we start weaving some yarn through there, but it will work. So that's going to be the needle, and that's one thing you need to check. As much as I might like my big needle, it's not going to work with these buttons, so check that out always. Okay, now as somebody who's colorblind, another thing that's really a challenge for me is matching the thread. Right now we've got to match thread. We've got buttons here, they are white, they got 4 holes in them. Now we got to get thread on those and sew them onto the sweater. Well, I'm colorblind and I have a lot of thread in this house, and I could text pictures to my mom and my sister of all my thread and ask them for what matches. But what I like to do instead, this is my yarn. There's still a lot left over. I made the newborn size. These balls of yarn have something like 650 yards of yarn in them. So there's lots of yarn left over, even from a newborn. I made the newborn size sweater. There's lots of yarn left over, so I just rewound it because I was crocheting something, but I ripped it out. So now I've got to find the end of my yarn back. Okay, so I am going to use my yarn, and that's the easiest thing when you're visually impaired. If you can't see color, like if you're colorblind like me, or you can't see well enough to match a thread to your project, then that's one of the things that you can consider, is using the yarn from your project. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to go ahead and cut a length of this yarn off, and that way my yarn will just completely blend in with my project. Now this yarn is a DK weight yarn, so it's a little bit thick. I'm going to try to split this yarn a little bit. That's one thing that I like to do. A DK is usually an 8 ply, so I'd like to splice it in half ideally and get it into 4 plies, but we will see. I already know if I get it down to 2, that is going to be too thin. That's the one thing you have to be careful with about unplying or unsplicing your yarn. Usually if you get them down to 2 plies, that will be way too thin, and it will just come apart. So we are going to unply and untwist our yarn here. We're going to try to. We might get a strand that's 6 plies and a strand that's 2 plies. Then we want to use the 6 ply one, just because the 2 plies will likely be too flimsy. But no, normally we don't want our yarn to unravel. That's not something that we usually want. It's frustrating. We don't like it when it does that. But in this case, we are intentionally unraveling our yarn. So I'm pulling off. Well, I was hoping I could unply it into 2 halves so we could have a 4 by 4. That does not seem to be working out for us. So we might end up with like 2 strands, which, like I said, is going to be too thin. But we'll do our best to at least take off part of this, because I just feel like an 8 ply is going to be too thick to work through our buttonholes. Okay, so I am twisting, I am plying, unplying my yarn. Let's see if I can get enough of it unplied to where we have a strand that we can work with. We strand that is long enough to sew on a button. I want to say that's long enough. We don't need that much yarn, but I think we will try and unply it just a little bit more if possible. The thing about unplying is it does tend to want to twist up tighter, right? Because it's twisted tight, and we want that. We want our yarns to have a nice tight twist to them. We really do. We like it when our yarns have a nice tight twist, because that way they don't split easily, they don't come undone easily. But when you want to unply them so you can work with them, then of course you don't like it when they have a super tight twist and ply to them. So I'm still trying to get enough of this. It doesn't feel to me like I've got a even 4x4 split here, honestly. It doesn't. This one strand feels a lot thinner than the other one. Like it's probably, like I said, it's probably getting me a 2x6 split here on my plies. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to call that probably good enough. We will see. Well, I'd like to unply it a little bit more, but we will see. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to pause my camera because this is twisted a little tighter than I wanted. I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to work on this, and then I will bring it right back to you as soon as I get a little bit more of it untwisted. Okay.
Pause. Zoom to, button.
Okay, so I have unplied my yarn a little bit. And now what I need to do is take this little tool. It's a simple little tool. It's called a needle threader. I don't know how much I can zoom it in and still be on the screen. This is called a needle threader. It's just a little, like a flimsy little metal tab. This tool is so flimsy. And then at the top, it's got this little tiny little wire. Mine's all bent up, unfortunately. That can make it a little bit difficult to work with. Hopefully I put my hand there and you can see it a little bit. So what we need to do now, I have unplied my yarn just a little bit. And then once you do that, the end might end up a little bit fuzzy, right? So I did have to cut the tip off of that so that it wasn't so fuzzy. So now what I need to do is I need to take this needle threader, this little metal wire, and I need to stick the tip of the blunt side of my needle where the eye is, right, on your needle. You've got this sharp end, and then you've got this eye on your needle. So you got to stick the eye of your needle over the top of the wire on the top of your little tool here, right? On the top of your needle threader, you thread the blunt and the little loop at the end of your needle over the top of your needle threader. Okay, so once that's done, right, hopefully people can see that, then you want to take your yarn. You might have to wet it. If you want to wet it with water, you can. I did just use saliva, but if that bothers you to do that, of course, use water or something to get your plies to stick together again. And then you want to stick your yarn through that metal loop on the end of your needle threader. And I would be lying if I said that was an easy thing to do. It's not. Even as somebody who's done this, I've been doing this since I was a child, it's not an easy thing to do. So there I did it. I got my my end of my yarn through the little metal wire on the end of the needle threader. And so now I just take the needle and I pull it off of the little wire loop on the needle threader, And so now my needle is on my yarn, and now I can just pull on the yarn and pull it back through the metal loop on the needle threader. And that is how you use a needle threader. That is how I, as somebody who's visually impaired, who can't see well enough to thread a needle, that's how I do it. My grandma taught me that trick when I was like 6 years old. I've been using needle threaders ever since I was born visually impaired, okay? So now we need to make a knot at the end of our yarn, and we need to make a pretty big one because we really do want to make sure that our buttons and our thread don't come through. Okay, my yarn's a little bit uneven there because I was unplying and untwisting. The end is a little bit uneven. I think I'm going to clip some of that and try to get some of that unevenness off the end of where we're working. I'm just going to snip that off. So, okay, so now we are going to tie a knot on the end of our needle. I simply do this by taking the yarn, by holding, I'm right-handed, so I hold my needle in my right hand. I pinch it between my thumb and my index finger on my right hand, and then I go ahead and take the tail, right, the opposite tail of my, the opposite end of my yarn from the needle, and I just lay that across the top of the over the top of the needle at the eye end where the yarn is through it, and then I wrap it several times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I like a nice big knot on there. So, and then you just take that knot, those several wraps, and you pull it and you pull it and you pull it until you get to the end of your yarn. You want to pull that nice and tight. You really want to make sure that that is secure. And I like to make sure that my yarn is nice and thick and tight. So I'm pulling on my yarn right now, because when you unply it, if you do unply it too much, it will be too thin and it literally will pull apart. And so that's why you really don't want to get it down to like 2 plies, or your yarn will disintegrate in your hands and then it's, you know, silly and pointless. Okay. So we've got our 4 little white buttons here. I just dropped one, and we are going to sew those on to our little cardie. Now this, I'm going to be honest with you, this little particular pattern from Premier has you knit on the button band and rib afterwards. You do the whole body. It's a top down. If you're visually impaired, this is a great pattern because it's top down raglan style. There's no seaming involved. However, to do the ribbed button band, you do need to pick up and knit. This is a DK weight yarn. I'm going to be really honest with you. It was super, super challenging. I'm not good at pick up and knit at all, but I'm really trying to challenge myself to do that and to try things that are challenging for me. So I did it, and I'm really happy. This is probably the best button band I've ever done on a sweater with pickup in it. I'm just going to be real with you. Some of my other ones have been super bunchy. I've really messed up the count. So, okay, I've got my buttonhole here. And the one nice thing about this ribbing is that as somebody who's visually impaired, I don't have depth perception. I have serious, I have nystagmus, strabismus. I have all kinds of vision and eye issues that keep me from even seeing straight. So I'm going to start here. This is going to help me to figure out where to sew on my buttons. We're going to start here at the bottom, and we're going to count this as 1. And we're going to count the ribs on our sweater. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then in the 10th one is where our buttonhole is. So when we go to the other side of our sweater, we can count up on the ribs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And in the 10th one, right, that is where we're going to sew on our button. So if we line that up, those should line up pretty well. And that is one helpful thing about doing the ribbing this way, even though I tend to hate pick up and knit. I'll be real with you. I hate doing it. I hate doing button bands this way. It's very challenging for me. That is a nice thing about it, is that you can count your ribs up, and it will help you to get your buttons across from your button band. It's a nice tactile way to feel what's going on. So then you just lay your button on top on that 10th little rib, okay? And then we're going to stick our needle underneath on the underside of the sweater, and we're going to poke it around. And hey, guess what? Everybody has to kind of do this by feel. So we're going to poke around until we feel our needle coming up through the button. Yeah. And there we did it. I just pulled my yarn. I want to pull on it tight and make sure that knot is secure, and it is. So now I've got my yarn coming out of the top. There's 4 holes in this button if you're visually impaired or blind. My yarn is coming through my top right hole. So now I'm going to feel my button, and I need to find the hole down below it, right on the bottom. I'm going to stick my needle through there and pull the yarn back down to the underside of the sweater. And then I'm going to feel around until I get to the bottom hole on the left. I'm going to pull my needle back through there. Then we're going to feel around till we get to the next hole on the top on the left. And we're going to push our yarn back down through that to the underside of the sweater. And we're going to go back up to the top right. We're going to pull our needle through to the top. We're going to go down on the bottom right hand hole of the button. We're on the underneath side of our sweater. Then we're going to come back up to the left bottom side of the buttonholes. Pull it back up to the top. Then we're going to go back through the upper left hole. We're going to push the needle down on the underside. We need to do this about 4 or 5 more times. Now, because this is the one thing, because yarn is thicker than your traditional sewing thread, it is at some point, it's not going to fit through the buttonholes as well, right? Because it's going to be pretty tight in those buttonholes. So with doing this, you probably will only get through your buttonholes about 4 or 5 times. But the nice thing about the yarn is that it's stronger, in my opinion, than just using traditional thread. And so you probably only need to go through there about 4 or 5 times to really secure it. So it's already getting pretty thick back there, and I'm having a hard time finding where to stick my where the hole is. Hopefully we can get through there one more time. I hope it is really getting thick, though. Even I can feel that the yarn is really clogging up those buttonholes. Oops, I think I got it on the left side, and I don't want to do that. I need to come over to the right. Yes, okay, I did it. So, and that is going to get really tight on the blunt end of your needle at this point, right? Because the yarn is thicker than your traditional thread. So this probably will be the last time that I can pull this through here. So we'll make it through 4 times, 4 passes through. That should be enough. It's pretty tight, but it should be enough to, yeah. Okay, we just got it through there. So now we got to go back up through the left side one more time. Okay, we're on the bottom left hole. We're coming back up through the top. It is a tight fit. Okay, where we go, and then we got to go back down through the to the bottom side one more time, and then we will, I think we've been through there 4 passes now, in each hole, and it's pretty tight now. I mean, I might be able to squeeze in there one more time, but those holes are pretty packed with thread. It's feeling pretty tight. Even before I knot it off, it feels really tight. That's the nice thing about the yarn, is it's really pulling on it, right? And it's pretty secure. It's on there nice and tight. You can give it a good pull and it's not going to come out. And that's the nice thing about sewing these up with yarn nice and tight, is you can pull, yanking on it pretty hard. You can pull it pretty tight and you're not going to get that button off of there. So now we're going to go ahead and knot this and tie this off. I'm sticking my needle through the back side of the button band on our little sweater. I'm just sticking my yarn through there, and I'm going to tie off a knot. I'm going to stick my yarn through there. I got a little loop now. Got to grab that between my thumb and index finger with my right hand. I'm going to stick the needle through that loop. I'm going to do that a few times just to make that knot nice and secure. 1, 2, 3 times. We'll pull it through nice and tight. We might do that one more time. We can again yank on our button. That is nice and secure. I'm pulling that pretty hard and it's not going to come off. And that's definitely what you want if you're making a baby garment. You don't want them to be able to pull off those buttons at all. So, okay, we're going to make at least one more knot on the back of this. So make a loop, stick the needle through it about 3 times or so, get those knots nice and tight and secure. We might even do it a 3rd time, we'll see. I don't want a huge lump on there, but at the same time, you do want it really, really secure. So we might go through there one more time, tie that off. Probably twice is more than adequate the way that I'm tying this. That might make it pretty lumpy, but we'll do it again anyways. It's probably not necessary. I'm sure twice is enough. But we'll stick our needle through there about 3 times. Really make sure our button is secure. Okay. There we go, and then we're going to pull that really, really tight. We're going to pull down those knots really tight. Again, we can just really grab this button and pull, and a baby's not going to get that off. If you're going to put buttons on a baby sweater, you want to use something strong. You want them tight so that there's no way that they're going to, yank that off and potentially get it in their mouth or something. So okay, we're gonna clip this. We're gonna cut this with our scissor. Right now you want to get it close, obviously, but you don't want to, cut your knot. So you want to feel where your knot is at. Right, with my left hand, I'm gonna feel where that knot is, and then grab that yarn and stick my scissors right up against the knot, and boom, we just clipped it. We are good. We're gonna lay this down for a second. We're going to lay down our sweater here, and we are going to make sure that our button is still crossed from our buttonhole. Look at that. They're laying them nice and next to each other. We can I probably could have sewn the button on, it's probably not quite centered now that I have it on there. Probably not quite centered. I probably could have moved it over just a little bit to the left, but we'll stick it through the buttonhole and we will see. Yep, we have a nice, I did get them a little bit off center. That is the one thing that I still tend to do as somebody who's visually impaired, is I do have a hard time centering my buttons just right. I'm hoping these are big enough for this sweater. They might be a little bit small. I don't think so though. I think that they will hold on this sweater. Yeah, I think so. Okay, and that I'm going to do this 3 more times, the exact same procedure. I'm pretty sure you don't need to see it 3 more times. So, all right, this concludes the end of the button demonstration for people who are visually impaired. Tools, tips, and tricks for the visually impaired, but of course for the sighted as well. As always, thank you, my friends, for listening, and happy stitching until next time.
Pause. recording button.
Okay,
Double
here
tap to
is
activate.
the baby sweater that we worked on that we sewed the buttons on in this video. This is completed. I've sewed on all 4 buttons. I did the other 3 just exactly like I did the first one. Counted the ribs up. I might have got the last one just a little bit too close. So this is a finished baby sweater. Now, I just want to be super clear. This baby sweater might have not been the best example project to sew buttons onto because buttons are a choking hazard for babies. So, you should never leave a baby alone in a sweater like this with buttons on it, just in case they do pull them off, right, and get them in their mouth. And even, it's a sweater you can put on them if you're with them, if you're taking them outside, if you're doing something with them. If if you're going to be there with them in the grocery cart, you got them right there with you, something where you're monitoring them. And every single time that you put on the sweater, you need to grab each button and pull on it as an adult, right? Grab it just like I was showing you in the tutorial. Grab all 4 of them, you pull on them. And make sure that they are secure, right? And if they're loose at all, either don't put the sweater on them or just take a scissor and clip off the button, right? Just snip it off. And if I gift this to somebody, which I might at some point, I might just ask them, do you want me to even include the buttons? Do you want me to cut them off? Do you feel free to cut them off? It doesn't offend me or bother me at all if a parent is like, you know what, I don't even want my baby to wear a sweater with buttons on it for a minute because, the risk that they might pull it off, even if the parent's right there. So, that's the kind of thing that I don't even know. When I put this button band on, I almost thought, should I put buttonholes on it or not, right? Should we even be including buttonholes and buttons on baby sweaters or not? I don't know. But definitely, they'd be an item of clothing that you'd only want to wear when you can monitor them. And yeah, and any garment with a button like that, whether it's store-bought or anything, pull on the buttons on all of them every single time and make sure that the babies can't that's just why I can't get them off, which is why I sew mine on with yarn for a variety of reasons. One, so I don't have to match them, but 2, because it's really tight. And then I also usually put like at least 3 knots in buttons for baby garments so that they are nice and secure. All right, thank you so much for listening.
Pause.